long white line winds its way to America. From a Colombian farmer in the Andes who harvests a simple green leaf, on to a fisherman who a month later packs a homemade submarine with pure cocaine and casts off for Mexico. Then, 2 weeks later, 40 keys gets loaded into a truck that crosses the border into the United States, where a dealer cuts it. And finally, a user pays more for a gram of it than she would have paid for the same weight in gold. As she leans over a table, she is part of a $30 billion a year industry, spiraling out of control and turning the southern border of the United States into one of the deadliest places on earth.
Mexican border cities are extraordinarily violent, Juarez being the most violent on the planet. A city that is so close to the United States, so close to El Paso, that it's practically part of the United States, leads the world in homicides, in carjacking, and in kidnapping for ransom.
35,000 murders in 5 years. How many have we had in the wars that we're fighting now? The threat here is amazing because if you look at the border environment itself, 2,000 miles. Of those 2,000 miles, a little bit over 1,100 miles are totally unsecured by the United States law enforcement people.
The cocaine issue is a lot bigger than we can imagine. If we don't stop the drugs coming across, if we don't maintain vigilance here, we're going to lose it. We're going to lose it here, and what's happening in Mexico is going to ultimately take over here.
2,000 miles long, the U.S.-Mexican border is where the vast majority of cocaine enters the United States. The Mexican drug cartels, to whom kidnapping and murder are standard business practices, dominate the smuggling. Mass graves and severed body parts are daily facts of life here, and many are afraid the violence will soon spill onto the streets of the United States.
It's 7:30 on Monday morning. We just got a phone call about a possible homicide on the outskirts of Cocain. This shows how murders can happen anytime, any day, any place. Right now, Mexico is caught in its worst drug war in history. You have fighting in Sinaloa, you have fighting on the border, but a huge amount of this all comes back to here, to Sinaloa, because the Sinaloan cartel was historically the biggest criminal organization in this country. With the pressure from the government, that cartel has erupted into civil war. The empire has imploded. This is one of the most murderous cities on the planet. You're talking about 5 murders every day. A lot of those murders are assassinations using AK-47s, using AR-15s, and so they often, as well as hitting the criminals involved, will hurt civilians. Just talked to the police officers, and they say they found the body, which appears someone who's been previously kidnapped, tortured, and shot to death. With this victim, as you can see, he has his hands tied behind his back and his head taped up. That is a sign that shows that he had been kidnapped and held for some time before he was murdered. There also appear to be some signs of torture, and then he was killed and dumped in a public place, and this happens every day in Sinaloa and in many parts of Mexico. What brings it home is when you see the family members. Often you're at a crime scene and then a mother will come there and say, my son, a wife will arrive on the scene crying, and seeing their faces is when you take in, this is human life. These are not just numbers. Every one of those 35,000 people who've died in this 4 years because of this war about drugs is a human being, and they're suffering because this war is being perpetuated. When you've had 35,000 murders like this, very many of them like this, in the last 4 years. The situation right now is at boiling point in terms of the killing.
It's very easy to commit murder in Mexico and get away with it. Only 2% of homicides are ever caught and punished in Mexico. Today, 71% of Mexican territory, by official Mexican government statistics, is controlled by organized crime, i.e. drug cartels.
The cocaine trade hasn't always been so bloodthirsty. For thousands of years, South Americans chewed coca leaf as a digestive aid for its mildly stimulating effect. Then in the mid-19th century, scientists searching for a miracle medicine distilled the essential element of the coca plant into a powder and called it cocaine. It was useful as an anesthetic and for treating a variety of ailments, but by 1920 it was found to be addictive and cocaine was universally banned. Cocaine disappeared until rock stars and celebrities revived it in the 1970s, when images of beautiful people snorting it gave coke an aura of glamour. Stepping in to fill this surge in demand were new Colombian drug cartels who controlled production and smuggling into the United States. Violence was a part of their business as they battled among themselves for the enormous profits to be made. The death of Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar led to the collapse of the Colombian cartels in the 1990s and changed everything. Mexican crime organizations filled the void. They have armed themselves like renegade military and have declared open war on anyone who tries to stop them.
In the 1980s, up until the recent era, there was very little violence either in El Paso or in Juarez. The drug trade was flowing, people were getting the drugs in, but there wasn't much conflict because you had one cartel in charge of Ciudad Juarez and people worked for it, made a good living doing this. But in the year 2008, you have an attempted takeover of the Juarez Plaza by the Chapo Guzman or Sinaloa cartel.
Imagine two companies, Southwest Airlines and American Airlines. They're in drastic competition for specific markets. Okay, so they shoot it out, they want to get that market, they want to get whatever they want to do. Same thing with the cartels. What do they try to do? They're going to shoot it out with each other and whoever gets in between them in order to control whatever they need to control to allow that product to come through.
The homicide rate skyrockets from 200 to 300 into the thousands.
It's an open war. It's an open war.
Is there a threat to American citizens? God, where do you want me to start? This drug war that's taking place in Mexico is not just drug dealers on drug dealers. There's been several incidents where bullets fly on this side. About 3 weeks ago, our road crew started receiving shots from the drug cartels because they were shooting at them. American citizens are being kidnapped, taken into Mexico and killed. I've got 5 people that have come up missing out of my county. They were kidnapped, taken into Mexico, and they've been killed. It's happening on a daily basis down here on the border from Brownsville, Texas to San Diego, California.
Mexico's on the doorstep of the United States. That violence can spread. And it's in the US interest to have a more peaceful environment on its southern border.
Anything that happens in Mexico affects the United States, and the collapse of the Mexican political system would be a disaster for Mexico, but also create tremendous problems and chaos in the United States. So the United States really needs to play a stronger role in lessening the violence in Mexico.
The relationship between the nations is complicated. Mexico resists U.S. intervention because it challenges their sovereignty. American politicians are anxious to avoid responsibility for the chaos on its border. The result is lots of talk about the situation, but little action.
I've walked that border, I've ridden that border, I've flown it, I've driven it. I know that border, I think, as well as anyone.
Do you think it's secure?
And I will tell you, it is as secure now as it has ever been.
My question.
Those who live on the border have a different view.
How can she stand there in front of millions of Americans and tell a bold-faced lie like that? It's nothing but a lie. This border is not secure. I've instructed my citizens, mainly my farmers and ranchers, to arm themselves. Do not leave that ranch house and go out in the country without a gun with you. Do not go out to these fields out here that you're plowing at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that you're trying to make a living with without something to protect your life.
The border is a lonely place. The landscape only occasionally relieved by an isolated ranch. Families here embody the self-sufficient spirit of American pioneers.
We're approximately 65, 70 miles east of El Paso. This is the last frontier of America before you go into Mexico. See that little berm right there? Everything on that side of the berm is Mexico. The river is right beneath that berm right there. So yeah, those hills right there, everything that's in Mexico. And that's where it all starts. That's where the drug starts coming through, and that's where the problems start coming through. Obviously, there's not a border fence here. You know, it's not secure. You can walk across the river anywhere you want to here. At times, there's places you won't even get your ankles wet. And, you know, it shouldn't be that way. That border should be secure. These people should feel comfortable and safe in this country, and they're not.
It makes it tough to sleep knowing or not knowing what could be coming across or what's watching you. So it's getting worse now. A year ago, a rancher just out checking his cattle, checking his water, and went to help a guy laying down by a water trough. The guy turned around and shot him dead. I couldn't imagine not having a gun. I wouldn't be out here. That's simple. I mean, do I think I could hold off 10 guys? No, but at least I got a fighting chance to maybe get away or get somewhere safe or until someone backup gets out here to help us out.
In big city America, you have the nice, quaint, quiet little neighborhoods. And then all of a sudden the gang activity takes hold in them neighborhoods. And all of a sudden it's not that little quiet, quaint neighborhood. People are moving out, people are leaving, people don't want any part of that.
Life, as you know it, is just gone because of these drug cartels. They just ruin everything for everybody.
These U.S. citizens who live along the border prove that drug violence is not a Mexican problem. It's an American problem, and both nations share responsibility for why it exists.
The two countries point fingers at each other, but in fact, it's a kind of symbiotic relationship. The drug trade is really the Mexican/American drug trade. The drugs come through Mexico or are produced in Mexico, but they are consumed in the United States.
The experts estimate that about $30 billion go every year from American consumers to Mexican cartels. Now that's a huge bounty, and they're going to keep fighting over that bounty as long as it's there.
Cocaine has cut a wide trail across America. It may be illegal, but it's also big business. And like any other industry, the supply is regulated by the demand. In the U.S., that demand is huge.
I'm 30 years old, and I've been doing this for 16 years.
How much I spend a week on crack? Maybe $1,000. $1,000 or more.
I may smoke 100 to probably a couple of $100 a day.
I guess in my whole life, I've sniffed up about $500,000 worth of cocaine.
Costs a lot of money, but if you're like me, you don't pay for it yourself. Get other people to pay for it for you.
A lot of times, girls don't have to buy coke.
Cocaine infects all parts of U.S. society, from the rich to the poor and everyone in between. A recent White House study reported that nearly 40 million Americans have tried the drug. Some are as young as 12 years old.
I was 15, and I had an older friend. He was 23, and he was awesome because he had like an apartment. His apartment was over the liquor store. He knew all the dealers. So he would basically get a bunch of teenage girls over to his apartment, and he would give us like bags of coke or bags of heroin and like chop it up and show us how to do it.
I was 21 years old when I got introduced to cocaine, and someone gave it to us as a tip at a wedding. I didn't know what the hell it was. I didn't even know how to chop it up.
Cocaine first came into my life when I was 18 years old. I worked as an escort and as a stripper, and that's part of the stripper life.
Originally, I started doing cocaine to cut back on doing heroin. Now I just do them both.
I've been doing this ever since I was 12, and now that I'm 52 years of age, I'm still doing this.
My friend's like, this is what you do? You did it, nothing happened. You know? And another one, nothing happened.
Like the first couple of times I would do it and be like, okay, I don't feel anything. I don't know what people are talking about. This is Then I realized that you actually have to do more than one line to actually feel the effects. And you definitely feel it.
I was freaking cleaning my house, music was on, inviting people over, losing my damn mind, chewing on my lip, talking about stuff I don't even know why I was talking about it. And I have fun time. So I ordered more. And more. And a lot more.
I have a black glass dining room table, and it's kind of awesome because it's color contrast, you know. So like we'll line up on it, and then like it's a real smooth surface, and also when you lean over it, you can sort of see yourself a little bit. So that's sort of fun. But I mean that's kind of the attitude that I bring to use is that like it should be kind of silly and fun.
Most users ingest cocaine in one of three ways. The most common is inhaling or snorting the drug.
When you do cocaine, you can either do a bump or you can do a line.
You take a key, and it's called key bumps. You stick the key in the bag and basically just snort it.
With a line, you just break it into skinny lines.
And that's what I do. That's what most people do. You take your bag of Coke, you dump a little bit out, you chop it up with a razor, you get the dollar bill in, and there you go, up in the face. Sometimes it can be tough to get all of the cocaine through your sinuses, you know, because you feel like, all right, we're almost there, and then like, down through the throat.
You snort it, and probably got a good 2 or 3 minutes until you tee off. And you're in a great mood, man.
You feel beautiful, you feel you're on top of the world. You get a lot bolder. Things that you wouldn't normally do, you would do.
You're up in a club, and you've just done some really good Coke, and then like some slamming song comes on. It's 3.5 minutes of just like unbeatable good times. I mean, what's not to love?
The drug has been controversial for centuries. Sigmund Freud thought it was a cure for everything, including malaria, hysteria, flatulence, headaches, depression, and alcoholism. Freud also used cocaine as a sexual stimulant. Writing to his fiancée, he warned her not to resist him, saying, "You shall see who is the stronger, a gentle girl who doesn't eat enough, or a big wild man who has cocaine in his body." Snorting is quick. It's easy. You can do it almost anywhere. But because it takes so long to hit the bloodstream, its effects are diluted. So some people inject it. The rush is faster. It's more powerful.
Before I even pulled the needle out, I could already taste it in my mouth.
Injecting the drug means you get higher using less cocaine.
This is the water canister that I put the water in to fill up the syringe. This is the cap that you pour the Coke in. Use a cotton ball, like the regular ear ones, you just pull off the cotton at the end. The cotton ball's for taking out all of the cut that they mix in to the drug. 30 to 40, probably the best amount of water you want.
Shooting up cocaine never appealed to mainstream users, but it was popular with some not-so-real characters, including Sherlock Holmes, a fictional detective who injected himself with a 7% solution of cocaine whenever he was bored or depressed.
Once you get past the fear of shooting it up, you can't ever get enough.
There's another way to take cocaine, smoking it. This version of the drug is called crack.
You pull real slowly, and then you hold the smoke, and then you blow it out. And the cocaine will affect you.
Cocaine is turned into crack by mixing it with baking soda and water and heating it. There are two reasons to make crack. Crack rocks can be sold in small, inexpensive units, and smoking it delivers an immediate, overwhelming buzz. But its effects can be unpredictable.
It affects different people different ways. Some people, the personality change. Some people get paranoid. Some people get quiet. Some people want to clean the whole house up, get active. Depending on the quality of the cocaine. If the cocaine is bad, then you're mad as hell, especially if it's your last $10.
You can't smoke the powder because the powder doesn't give you the rush that you'll get off bringing it to crack cocaine. Us people who smoke ourselves, we like to get it to its purest form. In a few minutes, if the cocaine is any good, my twitch will come about. The twitch is something that happens after you inhale the crack cocaine and take a hit and start not to have control of my mouth, if you notice. Right now, I'm feeling tense. Tense, can't control my speech slur. Everything takes away from my control right now. Did you hear that? Can't you hear it? You don't hear it? Somebody's walking around. That blast is like 15 minutes of glory. After that, it's all over again. It's the same thing all over again. And in long-term use, you'll find yourself homeless. People can't trust you. For the most part, you're just out there. You know, you're alone.
Cocaine has been illegal in America for almost a century. But that doesn't mean it's hard to find. Users always know where to score.
There's really not a city I've ever been to where I have wanted to find it and been unable to. Make the next left that you can, please. It is usually a matter of finding a dive bar in a downtown location and asking someone.
You can get it from waiters, from bouncers. You can get it from a valet guy, a coat check girl. You know, a coat check girl's working for what? $50 for the day? Really? You go away on vacation, the people that work at the resort, they're bringing you drugs to your door. You want ecstasy, you want this? I'm like, look, why would you think that I do that kind of stuff? And what do you got?
It's easier to get coke than it is to get weed.
I just have to make one phone call and it gets delivered to me.
Coke is everywhere. People in high-powered positions do cocaine. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, members of the clergy, school children. Everyone does cocaine.
Some people like Pepsi and coffee. Other people do Coke. It keeps you going throughout the day. We do the norm, take our kids to school, go to work, cook. Once we get home, and we can be high all day at our jobs, at parent-teachers conference, around our kids, and nobody would ever know it.
I've hung out with cops that do cocaine. I've seen housewives that wear aprons and cook and have kids blow out lines. It ain't spiky-haired little Italian orange kids that run around, right? That's not it. It's everyone.
There's a thin white line running along the border of the U.S. and Mexico. Cocaine smuggling and distribution is a $30 billion a year industry. So much money means that many are willing to risk jail and even death dealing this lucrative powder.
If you want to go cop some drugs, the two easiest ways to do it is you can go to the ghetto, talk to some gang members, and they'll sell you some drugs. Or you can call up me or one of my homeboys, and we'll come over and sort you out. Mostly the people that call you up are upper middle class, yuppie type characters that don't have the balls to go out and cop their own drugs on the street. The really funny thing is they're always afraid that you're gonna like steal their stuff. But it's like, yo, you're giving me all your money every time I come to your house. Why would I have to steal from you? I sell everything but crack and heroin. can't get crack delivered like you can't get cocaine delivered. Like crack, you have to go to the corner. You have to go see some guy named Flacco or Ice Dog or something like that. And, you know, he'll square you off.
Cocaine has always been a way to a quick profit. But when crack hit in the 1980s, profits tripled, literally overnight. It also brought with it a devastating wave of crime that ravaged cities from Los Angeles to Chicago and New York. Crack usage peaked around 1989, but it never went away.
A lot of profit in crack. Just to give you an idea, right now, a kilo of cocaine here in Chicago is selling for $27,500. By the time they cook it, chop it all up, and bag it up, you have about 12,000 rocks. Once they do that, they're selling it for $10 a piece. Off that $25,000 kilo of cocaine that you purchase, you're gonna make profit about $100,000. I grew up in this neighborhood, so a lot of people that I went to school with are the same people that I've arrested that's addicted to crack. Usually when you find crack cocaine, you find it in inner cities, Miami, LA, Chicago, New York, always in impoverished neighborhoods. It's $10. The high you get, they say is unbelievable. So that's where you find the bulk of it, but crack doesn't discriminate. Whoever is bold enough to try to smoke crack cocaine, if you get addicted, you get addicted. Crack does not know your wallet.
The target, first name is unknown and the last name is also unknown. What he goes by is a nickname Reno. The target usually comes outside the house and serves a person.
Crack is still a major presence in Chicago and its suburbs. Arrests are made all the time, but police can barely keep up. The Country Club Hills police have received a fresh tip about a crack dealer operating out of a neighborhood house. They are preparing for a raid.
We need to try to hit the bathroom ASAP. If somebody has to bust the toilet, one of those people run in there and bust the toilet quick, right at the base.
And Peter, what's your assignment?
I got the Ram. I'm ramming into the second door.
That's what's your assignment? Okay. Your assignment. Point. Okay. Everybody good? Everybody good. All right. Grab your equipment. Okay.
They're grabbing it now?
Yep. Okay.
For the raid to be successful, the cops have to move fast. They need to get into the house before the suspect has time to react, whether it's to destroy his drugs or get to a weapon. Any delay can have deadly consequences.
Use the front bar. Hurry up.
Please, search for it. Get a grab.
Down. Get down.
Hands out to your side. Hands out to your side.
Please, search for it.
You got a basement?
Clear.
Is it a basement?
Yes, ma'am.
Basement door.
Right now.
I know somebody had to snitch on me. It just doesn't happen like that. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't happen like that. I know somebody snitched on me.
Basement's clear. All clear. Clear up.
Clear.
Most other implants were round, but 7 years ago people were opting for them.
I had a smooth operation. It's not like back in the 80s and 90s when you got to stand on the corner. This is before cell phones were really big or really came out and thing when you had to stand on the corner. I don't have to stand on the corner. So if you come to buy some bags from me, it's like this, man. You call my phone. I know what you want. Meet me down the block. They call me when they come in the neighborhood. I'm already outside before you even call me. You know what I'm saying? I'm walking around. I mean, I'm 6'6", so you're not gonna miss me. See what I'm saying? So I just walk around till I see you, jump in the car, no hand to hand and stuff like that. I jump in the car with you. Drop me off down the block. You know what I'm saying? So I can see when you leave out. Now, I don't know what you do when you leave, you know what I'm saying? But I can see you driving down the block, and I can see you from the other block. There ain't no police coming this way. Smooth as can be.
Many forget cocaine was once legal and widely used. In the late 19th century, an Italian chemist made a popular cocaine wine called Vini that was enjoyed by Queen Victoria and the Pope. Then near the end of the 19th century, Georgia druggist John Pemberton created a non-alcoholic cocaine drink that would become the most popular beverage in all the world, Coca Cola. Cocaine wasn't just in drinks. It came in pills, even cigarettes. Congress outlawed the drug for good in 1914 and made its sale and distribution illegal. Today, if you're caught selling cocaine or crack, you go to prison.
It's done. No more crack selling for me, man. I can't do it, man. I can't even. There's too many snitches out here, you know what I'm saying, for one.
Chicago police make more than 40,000 narcotics arrests each year, but the pace of sales never seems to slow.
It's a constant fight. Every day, someplace in Chicago or the surrounding suburbs, a police department is executing a narcotic search warrant. Every day. Just as quick as you take them away and lock them up, someone else is in that same house serving again.
Cocaine travels in one direction, north. Starting deep in South America, it winds its way north towards the U.S. The last step before the street is the big money dealer. He's the one with the most to lose, so he's also the most dangerous link in the process.
There's all different kinds of drug dealers, but they basically will go into one of two categories, in my opinion. Those that need forklifts and those that don't.
I'm a drug dealer with the forklift and the tractor trailer. In my lifetime, I've touched at least 20 million. The typical day for me was opening up 4 o'clock in the morning, selling drugs till about 9 o'clock that night. It was like going to motor vehicles, going to PSE&G to pay a bill. Lines of people waiting to cop. That was every day. We didn't take no holidays. Christmas, we sold drugs. New Year's, we sold drugs. Easter, we sold drugs. 4th of July, we sold drugs.
If I had to wrap it up in one thing, the best thing about selling cocaine is the money. Is the money. And I'm talking about the kind of money that you have to pay people to count for you.
30, 40,000 a day. That's a lot of money. I grew up in a housing project, and cocaine was very rampant there. It was all around me. The older guys had all the finer things. They had the cars, they had the clothes, they had the women. As a young guy living in a housing project, you're destined to want that.
Always in the crew, all they did was throw dice. But in the midst of the dice, you got people who come up to the game, they cop, they go. And I saw that growing up. One guy one day said, would you like to make some more money? One of my guys got locked up. And I already knew, like I said, to make that kind of commitment, I knew what might come along with it. So I just said, yeah, sure. It wasn't even a second thought.
I watched, I listened to the older guys, and I learned how to become a successful drug dealer. It's no different than learning in a class. You're just learning in the street. And the things that you learn in the street is how to package, how to set up distribution, how to make profit. The business is definitely competitive. So to make your cocaine spot blow up, give out pure cocaine.
You get yourself some good quality cocaine. You might want to visit an island somewhere, you know, wherever, Colombia or Miami, South Beach, whatever the case may be. Throw out the best stuff out there. In 2 weeks, they'll wait for me. So like that, they can get what they think in their mind is already the best quantity stuff that's out there.
Your name and your product will be certified. Once your clientele is established, your name is out there, that you're proven to have the best, then you step on it.
The way to make money dealing drugs is simple. Build a loyal customer base by selling uncut product, then boost profits by diluting it over time.
That was Bonita I just played.
The coke on the streets today has as little as 15% actual cocaine in the powder.
An ounce will become 2 ounces. 2 ounces will become 4 ounces. Before you know it, I'm selling a whole bunch of garbage, but everybody's already addicted to my stuff.
This is how you add money to cocaine. The profits on it are greater. The risk is still the same,
Everybody is doing this, from the highest to the lowest. The little person on the street that comes to buy 3 vials. They will take the 3 vials, open it up, spill it out, cut it, put it back in the vials, sell $30 worth, and still got $30 worth to use to go back and cop again. So this is why the cut game is so important.
A big money dealer can rake in $40,000 in a day, but it's not an easy living. The threat of arrest and imprisonment is always present, which is why everyone in the cocaine business works to keep their identity secret.
What everyone does is they keep it stratified. I deal with the customers, and then I buy my stuff from some guy, right? I don't know where that guy gets his stuff from. The customers don't know the guy that I get my stuff from. It's kind of like how Al-Qaeda works. You know, it's like a cell network. And this way, if I ever get caught, I can only snitch up one dude. Then they can get him, and he's got to snitch up one more guy. You know what I mean?
I was working with more than 60 people. Well, out of those 60 people, it may have been only 3 that was really knowing what's going on. Everybody else was thinking that they knew what's going on. Because when you're getting money on a large scale, you're paranoid. You're thinking everybody is watching you. You never know what door your enemy is coming out of. You want to protect yourself. You don't want to get this money and die. You want to get this money and live good.
You get up in the morning, you walk out your door, you don't know what's coming at you. There's a stick-up kid out there waiting to get you. Somebody wants to take the little empire that you have and make it their own, including police.
When they sleep, you got to be awake. Where their narcotics headquarters was at, we would go to take pictures of every last car that they used. We had radio communication. We had scanners to listen to their calls. We would clock their shifts at the precincts. There were several stash houses. I had 5 stash houses in one building, 5 in another, and 5 in another, because I always had to be a step up on them.
The worst thing about dealing drugs is it's a lot of pressure. There's always a possibility that you're gonna go down. And you can go down pretty hard if you're not lucky, you know what I mean?
It's a big risk of being a drug dealer. The average person goes to jail before they make $10,000 in this game. This is not a game for just the average guy. The name of the game is Cops and Robbers. I'm a robber. You a cop. Catch me if you can. At the same time, I'm not scared to pull a trigger neither. If I catch you, you out of here.
Cocaine traces a path down every street of America, but its most difficult route is traveled before it even gets here. The process of smuggling it across the border is a story of innovation and determination.
Smugglers come in all shapes and sizes. It could be a juvenile, it could be an old lady. There's no set persona. On occasion, you do wind up with smugglers who may have their entire family with them, and sometimes the rest of the family is innocent bystanders. They have no idea. Sometimes everybody's involved. The volume of traffic coming through the checkpoint makes our job much harder.
This particular port, the Hidalgo Port of Entry, is a 24/7 operation. We average approximately 7,500 to 8,000 vehicles a day and 6,500 to 7,000 pedestrians.
An average of 112,000 pedestrians and 205,000 vehicles cross into the U.S. over the Mexican border each day. It's physically impossible to search them all. Any one of them could be carrying cocaine.
Everybody knew me as a businessman. They had no clue that I was moving product back and forth. No clue. You gotta be a chameleon. You gotta fool everything and everybody at all times. And you work on that. Let me give you a scenario. Your family calls. Jake, we got 105, 125 keys of coke we need to get. To where? Let's say Illinois. Okay. They don't want to know how I got it there. They don't even care. They just want me to get it there and I'll be responsible for it. I get the driver, I get the vehicles, I get whatever we need. Car auctions, our best friend. Let's say in a place called Bowling Green, Kentucky. home with a Corvette. Every year they do a round of Corvette running. It's everybody, worldwide. Before that time, I picked up 5 Corvettes with salvage titles. And we loaded each of them with drugs. The 3 cars. The front is just a pace car. Keeps the speed and keeps everything up. The other car is just a traffic car. He's just running interference. The cars in between, they are loaded down. We head across country. We even got highway patrolmen waving at us. When you're serious about transport and everything you do, you come up with an idea.
The keys to smuggling cocaine are the cars and trucks that carried large quantities across the border and around the country. These elaborate machines are among the most customized vehicles on the road.
This is one such vehicle that we seized from a cartel coming from Mexico into the Chicago area, loaded up with drugs. In the back cargo area, this looks like a normal cargo area of a minivan, when actually there has been a concealed compartment constructed in here that will contain up to 50 kilograms of cocaine. I see a crease in the carpet right here. That's not normal to have a crease run side to side in the cargo wall like that. But if you look on this side of the van, you see the carpet is tucked into the sidewall here very neatly. On the other side, the carpet is sticking out. You can look underneath the van, and there's an aftermarket box that's been constructed underneath the cargo area that lowers where the spare tire is. So the spare tire is about 6 inches lower than it normally would. And to a police officer who's been trained to identify that, that's an indicator that there's a concealed compartment in this vehicle. All secret compartments require at least 2 switches to operate them, and the cartels do that on purpose because they don't want the trap doors being opened accidentally by other criminals, or more importantly, by law enforcement. This vehicle has to be on, and the rear defrost switch has to be turned on. And then there are 2 secret switches back in the cargo area. The secret switches in this vehicle are hidden underneath the carpet, so they can't be detected by law enforcement. If we depress one switch, it opens the trap door to the concealed compartment. There's a cargo area that reaches at least 4 feet back underneath the floor. Inside this vehicle, when it was stopped, we discovered 50 kilograms of cocaine. 50 kilograms of cocaine is over 100 pounds of drugs, roughly about the amount of drugs you could fill into a common household garbage can.
I gained a ton of money doing that, and I lost a ton of money. In a 4-month period, I lost $250,000 at a casino, and that's just one casino. And I was VIP at a lot of casinos. Before 9/11, I used to kill the airports. So simple, so ridiculous. We used to have vests made. That's when I was small time. I was taking like 5 keys at a time through the airport. That was the good old days. That was the good old days. Nothing lasts forever, as they would say. People still use planes, but most of the time it's an inside job.
Smuggling via airplane became more difficult after 9/11, but it's still done, and bribing security officials makes it possible. The people who carry the drugs are called mules. They are one part of a well-oiled machine that operates on both sides of the law.
I've done a lot of coke. I've been around a lot of coke, and I met a few drug dealers. I got to know them a little bit better, and they asked me one day if I was willing to travel for them and bring some drugs back, and I told them yes. A connect gets you your passport, books the airlines. We would go to Amsterdam. 4 or 5 of us girls would go to a hotel. We would stay there for about 4 or 5 days. We'd go get some shoes, go shopping, go back to the hotel. We weren't really allowed to leave the hotel area. And they would take the shoes and take them to a mill where they would have them opened up, stuff the drugs inside of it, seal it again. The shoes would look like they were never touched, like they just came out the box, pack them in a suitcase, and we get back on the plane to the States. We all get into separate cabs, and we have a connect that's meeting us at our location. We go into the stash house. They weigh it to make sure that nobody's tampered with it, that we haven't, you know, scooped a little bit out for our personal use. We get paid the other half of our money, and we go on about our business, and we wait for the new phone call when it's time to go travel again. It's a very structured business. Border Patrol, Customs, screeners at the airports. Everyone is paid off, even up to the detectives and narcotics in the States.
I truly believe that everybody has a price. In this economy now, it's even worse. You know how they have a border control agent stepping in there? We used to have 2 or 3 of them on pay. And we tell them like this: we're gonna send you a blue car, black truck, whatever. You can have the black truck. People don't realize that. That's a gimme. What they're getting is what they know. And usually when they find something major, like an 18-wheel with 2 tons of coke in it or something like that, that's because someone didn't pay.
The U.S. government seizes different amounts of cocaine from year to year. In 2005, they got 58 tons. In 2009, it was down to less than 20. Drug traffickers claim that some of that they gave up deliberately.
Sometimes we would send a guy through customs, knowing that we were going to give that vehicle up. This guy might not know it. He just got set up, but he don't have a record. We already looked at it. He's going to be caught as a mule. They're going to ask him to work with him. He's not going to do it. He's going to shut up and do his time. Maybe do 2 years at the most.
Some people get paid, you know, a good amount of money to take the fall just so that the big drugs could come in. The connects will pay for the lawyers. You get locked up. You know, we'll post a bail for you. We'll get you out, pay for a lawyer $25,000, and you'll get maybe 150 hours community service.
He shows his loyalty, you repay him with loyalty, and you got a job forever as long as I'm in the game.
It all comes down to the money. You're gonna be paid very well, and that's what just keeps you going.
Cocaine dealers pay their employees large sums of money to ensure their loyalty. The threat of death ensures their silence. But not always.
Have people lost their lives? Oh yeah, every day. But they don't lose their lives because they lost a shipment. Most of them lose their lives because they're talking. That's what's wrong with society now. There is no loyalty in the game anymore. And that's why you see what's going on across the border. It used to be my family respected your family. You handled your block and I handled mine. And now, my family see you doing more money than I am, my family's gonna come stop that. That's the way it is now.
The United States is the world's largest importer of cocaine, and 90% of that cocaine comes across the Mexican border. With $30 billion at stake, it's not surprising that the drug cartels would do anything to protect their interests. What is shocking is how ruthless they have become. Since 2007, they have committed more than 22,000 murders.
I'm going to take you into the Jardines del Maya Cemetery, which is a graveyard in Culiacan, where many of the big capos are buried, as well as many of their foot soldiers and lieutenants. It's an incredible example of how the drug trade celebrates both death and extravagance and incredible amounts of money.
These tombs are some of the most extravagant and incredible tombs you'll find anywhere on the planet. Some of them have 2 levels with air conditioning. Some of them have Italian marble. They get in the best painters and architects to design them. It's a whole industry. The extravagant style that you see in these tombs even has its own name, narcotecture. Some places you see models of aeroplanes showing they were pilots that trafficked and moved the cocaine from Colombia northwards. Sometimes you'll find a policeman in quite a small tomb, and then next to it this enormous, extravagant grave where they spent $250,000 and bought in the Italian marble. And again, that shows the success. If you're a young person in this community and you're looking, what do I do for a living? Where the minimum wage is $5 a day. And you think about a life of and never having enough money, never being able to make ends meet. They prefer the idea of being rich and having the glory and women and all these extravagant things for 5 years. And if they die then, well, they get this great tomb here to show they've lived and show they made something.
Many of these tombs are made of Italian marble and cooled by air conditioning. But this modest vault holds one of the most infamous dealers in history. His death in 2009 caused one of the most reviled acts of revenge in the history of the cocaine trade.
Among many of the capos or godfathers in this cemetery, the most powerful and wealthiest was Arturo Beltran Leyva. He made billions of dollars moving Colombian cocaine through Mexico into the United States, and part of the war on drugs by President Felipe Calderon has been to try and take out the top guys, the capos. The security forces zeroed in on Arturo Beltran Leyva. They got intelligence from American agents of the Drug Enforcement Administration, and they passed the information to the Mexican Marines. The Marines attacked the apartment block, but Arturo Beltran Leyva refused to go down. He was with 5 of his aides. And they were firing out of the windows and throwing frag grenades, and eventually he went down. But during that battle, one of the Mexican Marines was shot dead, and they shot Arturo Beltran Leyva and his 5 aides. After the death, somebody messed with Arturo Beltran Leyva's body. They decorated his body with dollar bills and let photographers come in to take photos of that as a way to humiliate him and show we've taken down this great godfather. You know, you're not the heroes for these young people. We can humiliate you as well. Now, his people didn't take very kindly to that. And in the battle, a Mexican Marine had died during the gunfight. The next day, he was given a hero's burial service by the president. They said his name. And then some gunmen turned up at the wake and they killed his mother, his aunt, and brother and sister. The message was, if you mess with us, we'll take out your entire family.
Brazen executions, like the murder of the Marine's family, send a message of terror that's impossible for Mexicans to ignore. The latest targets are journalists, who the drug lords want to stop reporting on their bloody crimes. Despite these threats, award-winning photojournalist Fernando Brito has been trying to draw global attention to the escalating violence with his pictures of homicide scenes.
It's scary because it doesn't feel safe at all, and we have certain limits that we don't cross because we know after that line anything can happen. So this is not an easy job at all, because all we feel is insecurity and danger out there.
There
are lots of things happening here. It's not a game. So we just try to not participate in the narcos game. But if things are occurring, it's still news, and we have to publicize it. Violence is happening in all of Mexico, and there are lots of deaths. So we don't want to forget about this, and nobody should forget about this because it is a social situation. So that's why I try to document it.
There are 2 main reasons for the increase in brutality. As cartel leaders are arrested, they are replaced by younger, more reckless gangsters, many trained as assassins. This, coupled with the government's takeover of supply routes, has intensified the competition between cartels for new routes and increased the amount of gunfire.
Drug trade and violence go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. It's a violent business. It's a murderous business. It's a business that's there only to make money, whatever it takes.
As this war has evolved in Mexico, now it's in a level of death and massacres and weaponry beyond anything we could see before. And one of the reasons is that as they've killed the capos, the godfathers of the cartels, often the assassins have become the bosses. And whereas back in the days, the traffickers, their main business is to move drugs, some of the assassins, their main business is killing and carrying out massacres, and they will use drugs to finance that. So in some ways we've seen a change from a fighting over the cocaine trade and the trade in other drugs to a war in Mexico being funded by cocaine and other drugs. They first began to chop heads off in 2006. Then you saw an increasing use of decapitations. And then you see drug cartels from about 2007 start to make snuff videos. You know, now seen in Mexico thousands upon thousands of kidnappings for ransom of innocent people to make money. It just shows such a sickness, a disregard for human life, a terror which is very puzzling to understand, to fathom and to see. Now you've got the drug money, the cocaine money, coming to Mexico and funding a low-intensity civil war, funding paramilitary groups. So now it's got to a critical situation that policymakers in the world needs to look at and try and learn some lessons from.
The situation in Mexico is becoming more widely recognized. And U.S. citizens living along the border blame the Mexican government for being unable to control the situation. But without millions of Americans willing to pay cash for cocaine, the cartels and the havoc they cause would not exist.
The prohibition of cocaine has created a massively inflated price for the product. A kilo of cocaine costs about $2,000 in Colombia, costs about $30,000 wholesale in the United States, and about $100,000 on the streets of the United States. Now, when you have a business where somebody can buy something for $2,000 and sell it for $30,000, or sell it for $100,000 if they have a distribution network, then that is a very lucrative business. Now, the lion's share of that business is now owned by the Mexicans. It used to be owned by the Colombians. With the help of American pressure and the help of various policies, the Colombians were gradually sidelined to just being producers and selling on to the Mexican cartels. So now the big money from buying for $2,000 and selling for $100,000 is owned by the Mexicans.
If this is not controlled, then I think the Mexican government is going to eventually become a narco state. When that happens, what happens here? We have a narco state on our southern border that we can't control. I hope it doesn't happen.
The worst case scenario in Mexico would be something like Colombia, where you have millions of internal refugees displaced by drug violence. You have huge chunks of the country completely controlled by drug cartels. That's starting to happen and already has happened in Mexico. But also a political system that really cannot control the national territory because so much of it is controlled either by guerrilla armies or drug cartels.
The worst case scenario is that the Mexican cartels continue rising in power, that the level of violence continues getting higher and higher. And where you had 15,000 murders last year, what would happen if you saw 50,000 murders in a year? And that would really send shockwaves into Mexican society.
Cocaine is a $30 billion business in the U.S. It's a dangerous and deadly game that claims thousands of lives each year. The flow of cocaine in the U.S. was controlled for decades by the Colombian cartels, and while the Mexicans have taken over trafficking, the Colombians still handle the production. The Mexican, Colombian, and U.S. governments have all banded together to fight these operations, but with each government victory, the smugglers change tactics, sometimes ingeniously.
Years ago, the Colombians controlled the majority of the cocaine that came into the country. That was their main cash flow, was the cocaine. And then in the late 90s to the early 2000s, they started turning over that distribution to the Mexican drug trafficking organizations. They could get it to Mexico relatively easy, sell it to the Mexicans, and then let the Mexicans worry about all of the risk that it takes to get it up into the United States. And they were seeing that their profit margin from the kilograms was similar to what they would be making if they distributed to the United States. The techniques that they use are constantly changing. They change, we change. It's a cat and mouse game.
Basically, they started working with fast boats, then they started to use fishing boats, and now the semi-submersibles. Traffickers have been using semi-submersibles since 1993. We found the first one in that year. The semi-submersible is basically a device which can sail with most of the hull under the water. That will make very hard for the radars to pick up the vessel.
The cartels recruit these crude vessels. The conditions are cramped. The temperature is hot and the air circulation is awful. The trip to Mexico can last up to 10 days and the semi-subs are usually junked after one run. But they can carry as much as 5 tons of cocaine and the pilots are paid well. This man made 2 successful runs before offloading 4 tons of cocaine to a Mexican fishing boat. He was extradited to a U.S. prison where he served 8 years and 9 months.
They offered to pay me $200,000 for this trip. I accepted to do this job, so I did it.
There's a lot of poverty and not too much opportunities for work. So it's very easy for drug organizations to persuade these people to get in that business.
My father was a fisherman, and all I wanted to do was a big fisherman like him. But the problem in Colombia is the government fight against the drug dealer, but they don't provide jobs to the people. I want to buy a house to my family and be able to give to my children a good education. But the only way I found to do it was traffic drug. The first time I was trying, I was caught and spent 7 years in United States prison. But all what I was trying to do was provide for my family.
The person in that ship is not the drug dealer. He's the person that needs money for food for his children at home. That's the great social problem. People have so much necessity that they are forced to do that. There are no other resources. And the government doesn't give the helping hand. The cartels are the ones making the money. The person making the trip doesn't earn.
Mi primer viaje lo hice en un semisumergible por necesidad.
My first trip was in a semi-submersible out of necessity. I did it because I needed medical treatment for my wife because she was suffering from epilepsy. It was a 12-day journey where you could not see anything, only guided by GPS. There were bad breathing conditions and I ate poorly. I made the 1,500-mile trip from Guatemala to Mexico, where 3 tons of cocaine was picked up by an American fishing boat. And from that point, we remained obligated to these people and the will of what they wanted to do with us.
The first semi-submersible was captured off the coast of Costa Rica in 2006. They called it Bigfoot because rumors of semi-subs had been around for years, but no one had ever seen one. The Coast Guard started seeing an average of 10 a month. Then the cartels went even deeper.
As the years evolve, just like technology evolves, the drug traffickers are using more sophisticated methods, they're using more sophisticated equipment, all sorts of different things.
The semi-submersible was created to avoid being detected by the radar from the electronic barrier provided by the United States. 4 years ago, the United States learned how to detect the acoustic radar phenomenon. The drug traffickers started to see a way to change the technology and managed to make submarines.
Submarines offer significant advantages over semi-subs. They can carry more cargo, they're much harder to detect, and they can handle multiple runs. Only a few have ever been found. No one knows how many exist.
Well, this year we found the very first self-propelled, fully submersible in the Colombian coast. Before that, we only had semi-submersibles, so this is a big technological step.
Para la construcción de los submarinos vinieron ingenieros americanos.
For the construction of the submarines, American engineers and ex-submarine drivers came and taught the drug traffickers how to construct these vessels with Russian technology.
Con tecnología rusa.
The cost to make this was around $2 million. We conclude that with intelligence and all the elements that they used to make it.
A shipment can generate for these people up to $49 million in just one trip. So it's very easy to pay for it.
The truth in this war is that the change is constant because narco traffickers, they try to adapt to act against the authorities. So this is kind of a chess game, and we try to be always ahead of these guys. We can expect next maybe remote control devices that can be controlled from other ship, like a distance from 5 to 10 miles, and that will be very hard for make detection on that.
The technology is known and it's being used right now, but not with remote control ships, but with airplanes. They are using airplanes with double frequency GPS technology that can carry 2, 3 kilos, 5 kilos max. And you have someone else on the other side of the US border with a GPS and a remote control, and they are communicating with each other. The person on the other side picks up the signal and guides the airplane. That's what they've been doing on the border between Mexico and the USA. The technology is known. It's a cat and mouse game.
The story of cocaine is the story of the Americas. The U.S. is the world's largest market for the drug. Mexico controls the trafficking into the U.S. Colombia gets it up to Mexico, and it all begins in Peru, where cocaine is born.
This is coca. It's pretty harmless looking, green leaf really. But from here, it's refined into cocaine. It's brought via submarine up through Central and South America and into the United States, where corrupt officials get paid to assist in its entry. There, it's steeped in violence between metropolitan street gangs who profit on its distribution. This is where the story begins.
¡La parte de 57! ¡Viva el Perú! ¡Viva el Perú, carajo!
Right now, we're in a region that's referred to as Frei. This is the central jungle region in the Andes foothills. We're at a military base here. They've got an actual map of this region. It discusses where all of the different narco bases are for the Shining Path, which is one of the more formidable narco-terrorist groups here in the region.
The Shining Path is a militant communist guerrilla organization that rose up in 1980 and waged a terrorist war throughout Peru for more than a decade. The government eventually captured their leaders and scattered their forces, but they reappeared in 2003. Since then, Shining Path attacks on police and civilians continue, but this time they seem less interested in overthrowing the government than in reaping the rewards of selling cocaine.
The Frei Valley is significant for several reasons. Geographically, it's perfect for the growth of coca, which is the active ingredient in cocaine. Also, it's an austere environment. It's very easy for the Shining Path to duck into the foothills, duck into the valleys, and really will fortify a stronghold where they can defend their crop and their livelihood. The primary mission here is counter-narco-terrorism. This is a mission to identify, detect, and eradicate those that are taking coca and refining it into illegal narcotics and exporting them.
This is Camp Picheri, the front line in the Peruvian struggle against cocaine producers. The camp is home to 300 soldiers whose commando units patrol the surrounding jungle in search of cocaine kitchens.
Last night, intelligence came in that there's some maceration pits just south of here. We're going via helicopter to liaise with the commandos and take a hovercraft up to one of the maceration pits where they process raw coca and turn it into commercial-grade cocaine. Coca's been used in this region for centuries, for its medicinal purposes, for its curative properties, for its spiritual uses. It's also been used commercially as an additive to food, sweets, candies. It's a cash crop. It's not illegal to grow this plant. What is illegal is the refinement into cocaine, which the Peruvian government spends hundreds of millions of dollars trying to eradicate. However, they don't burn these fields because this supports the entire region. There's no other crop that they can take to market because then they have to take it to where the marketplace is. The difference with this drug here is that the market comes here to them.
The chopper circles on patrol. When the machine touches down is when the soldiers are most vulnerable, and it's when the shining path is known to attack with heavy weapons. The unit then transfers to hovercraft and proceeds downriver to the target.
On either side of the Rye River Valley here, you've got coca plantation. You can see swatches of coca that are cut out of the hillside, and then they're brought down to the maceration pits where they're processed with chemicals and made into commercial-grade cocaine. There have been efforts in the past for law enforcement, the military, to try to eradicate the cocaine crop. But what happened in response to that is the citizenry revolted, and the military is doing their best effort to weigh the balance of what is illegal, what is legal, and what keeps these people who live in this region out of starvation.
Once at the destination, the commandos deploy quickly. Tension remains high until the area is properly secured. A surprise attack on the maceration pit is impossible, as the hovercraft's engines will alert anyone processing cocaine there. As the unit draws closer, the level of danger rises.
This is the pit. This is the maceration pit. This area is very valuable. It's very well surveilled, and there's explosives and potentially booby traps historically surrounding areas just like this. The commandos are going to do a perimeter security check and make sure our safety is in line, and then I'll explain to you what's in that pit.
Maceration is the first step in the process of turning the leaf into cocaine. Here in the jungle heat, with the stench of chemicals and rotting vegetation, groups of Peruvian workers toil for weeks on end processing the leaf.
This is a chemical blend of kerosene, hydrochloric, sulfuric acid mixed in with a little bit of lime. It's a very primitive chemistry set that they've got here that they refer to as the kitchen. From here, they emulsify all the moisture out of this into a cocaine paste. This can be ingested for a very cheap high, but nowhere near the potency once it reaches the refinement of commercial-grade cocaine. Additionally, all of these toxic chemicals that are used for the refinement of cocaine paste is filtered down through this open trench and down right into the river, causing a measurable environmental hazard here. The farmers actually live here for an entire season. They can have up to 4 harvests a year out of a location like this. As we arrived here with the commandos, the farmers who were occupying this functioning lab bailed up into the countryside. We saw open containers of Tupperware where they're just eating potatoes and rice. They're living in squalor. There's trash and refuse everywhere, and they're having to inhale these toxic gases day in and day out. The Peruvian commandos are now going to destroy this camp. They're going to fill these maceration pits with chemicals and these kerosene vats and light them all on fire. This camp is going to be rendered useless after we leave here today.
Every year, the Peruvian military locate and destroy more than 200 maceration pits like this. But it's never enough to stop production. It would be more effective to eradicate the drug in the fields where coca is grown, but past attempts met massive public resistance. No other crop is as lucrative as coca for the farmers that grow it.
When you're a farmer who's living in abject poverty, you don't really question the who's and whys of why you're getting prosperity in your little village. Many of the people that farm coca are born, they live, they die within 10 miles of where this farm is. Now, the government is trying to do humanitarian assistance in these regions. They're trying to do economic development operations. Unfortunately, the drug trafficking organizations are just a little better at it. So they're going to get the help and support of the local population.
Cocaine has left a bloody trail across the Americas. Its casualties, the rich and the poor, criminals and the law, the dead and the living, all victims of a war that rages even today. June 1971, President Richard Nixon declares war on drugs. 2 years later, he creates the Drug Enforcement Administration. 40 years later, we've spent $1 trillion. 40 million arrests have been made, and still someone is busted for buying or selling drugs every 18 seconds in the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to summarize for you the meeting that I have just had with the bipartisan leaders. I began the meeting by making this statement, which I think needs to be made to the nation. America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the funds to fuel this kind of an offensive. This will be a worldwide offensive. If we're going to have a successful offensive, we need more money. Consequently, I'm asking the Congress for $155 million in new funds. As far as the new money is concerned, incidentally, I have made it clear to the leaders that if this is not enough, if we can use more, more will be provided.
I have a pinched nerve in my arm. It's a wrist drop, the doctor said. It's a little numb. Either I hit a vein the wrong way or I stuck it into a nerve that got in the way or something. I don't know, but I've gotten used to it now. I can still function like any other human being. It's really not that bad if you know what you're doing.
I love cocaine. I really am just like a party chick. Like, I'm always gonna be, I always have been. It's never gonna change about me. That's just always, always gonna be a part of my life.
No matter how much war is waged, no matter how many arrests are made, people will continue to get high. And as long as they do, the violence in Mexico and around the world will continue.
It's American drug consumption which is funding this conflict. There's $30 billion of drug money going every year from American drug users into the hands of cartels and then go on to pay child assassins to buy guns and ammunition. But then again, it's the failure of policymakers who allow this to happen. A failed war on drugs has carried on for 40 years. They've allowed cocaine to create an enormous amount of money that goes to these cartels. So I wouldn't personally blame the drug consumers. I mean, some people would argue that they should take a responsibility and stop taking drugs because there's corpses here. Well, I think that's probably an unrealistic idea.
I make my money by turning dates, charging them $10, $20 enough to get me a crack rock, fool the hell out of them, making them think that I was a woman, which naturally I'm a man. That's part of my addiction. That's something that I've been doing for a very long time, you know.
The problem of American drug addiction, it seems to me, is a never-ending one. I mean, the levels of addiction go up and then come down, but they relatively stay constant, and it's not something that's easily changed.
As long as the demand is where it's at now, the war on drugs is a joke. We're letting the war continue until you recognize that it's never going away. That's always going to be here. That's a high demand for it. Cocaine is always going to be here.
The United States could never win this drug war because the amount of drugs is so great, enough to satisfy U.S. supply and world supply, It's a losing fight. That's why I'm very much against the notion of a drug war, because it's just impossible to stop this steady flow of goods, especially because Mexico has such terrible problems with poverty and the United States has such a huge demand for drugs.
Sometimes you make an arrest, before you could get out the station, you see another line at the house you just locked somebody up at. Or 2 days later, the house is up and flowing, but now they got new burglar gates, you know, to make it harder for you to get in the next time. Now, it is easy to get frustrated, but again, we can't give up.
The war on drugs is basically a myth. There's more cocaine in this country than any country in the world. In every state, in every city, there's cocaine. There is nowhere that cocaine is not. And this is what keeps the cycle going. This is what keeps the risk going. This is why people will do it. This is why it's never going to stop. This is why the war on drugs is bull. Because from the highest to the lowest and everybody in between, we're all looking for one thing: money.
Come here, Black. What I'm actually doing is getting ready to go out and hook. Actually, they're going to love me because as it gets dark outside, they're not going to really take a clear look at me anyway. I'm not as, But today, honey, I'm smoking me a rock. Really. I'm smoking me a rock.
We've seen 40 years of a war on drugs, which they failed to win. And now many in Latin America and the United States are saying, how can we try and find some laws which will not allow billions and billions of dollars every year to go into the hands of murderers and killers who can carry out these atrocities like we see in Mexico.
The United States and Mexico are essentially married in a dysfunctional marriage, but we can never get out of it. We're condemned to live with each other, and the Mexican drug trade can't function without U.S. consumption of the drugs, and the Mexican political authorities know that. And so, in a strange way, the drug trade is beneficial to both countries, and it creates both a symbiotic and a parasitic relationship between the two. But the tragedy is that most of the suffering from the drug trade occurs in Mexico because of the struggle to control the lucrative profits.
I do believe that there are ways to sell drugs without killing people. So if someone chooses to kill people in order to sell drugs, I do not actually influence the choice to kill people.
When you have 35,000 murders in 4 years connected to a drug war, when you have mass graves of 183 people, when you have groups of 50 armed men going through villages with belt-driven machine guns and RPGs, you have to have serious concern. It's not too alarmist to say you have to worry about the spread of a wider civil war in Mexico. When that is happening, you have to look and say this is an urgent situation. We have to try and sort this out and stop bad policies that have perpetrated this problem.
The way to fix the cocaine problem in America is by us acknowledging that thus far we haven't did anything. Until we can go back to the table and come up with a better solution and plan, we're gonna always have the problem.
Every time I make an arrest, I'm happy because I feel like I'm making a difference. Because you would like to hope that you're saving somebody's child from going over there buying a crack rock. We just have to keep fighting until we find a solution. What's the solution? I honestly don't know.
One final word with regard to presidential responsibility in this respect. I very much hesitate always to bring some new responsibility into the White House because there are so many here, and I believe in delegating those responsibilities to the departments. But I consider this problem so urgent. I also...
Sometimes I get sad because I had family members strung out on crack, you know? Paid for a couple of rehabs. And I know when they was my product that were on the street that I bought there. So I was supplying to everybody. Because if it wasn't me, it'd be someone else.
Cocaine definitely has been a positive thing for me, regardless of my arm. Because my arm will come back, and everything will be back to normal soon. And I will continue to do what makes me happy.
Oh, is that a dead or what? I want me a damn rock. Ooh.
We have not only the responsibility but the authority to see that we wage this offensive effectively.